Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. This is Tariq Amin, lecturer, Department of English, Cohort, University of Science and Technology, Cohort. A very warm welcome to the course of Functional English. This is lecture number 28, and our today's topic is precise writing. In today's class, we are going to talk about precise, and after that, places where a precise could be used, and then steps in writing precise, then what to omit in a precise, and after that we will discuss some of the general rules of writing precise, and then we will discuss some of the qualities of a good precise, and then at the end of the class we will discuss some of the differences between summary and precise. Let's start the class. What is the precise? A precise is a clear, concise, and orderly summary of the contents of a piece of writing. For example, you have a piece of writing of 10 pages. The precise of that original piece of writing is actually the clear, concise, and orderly summary of the contents of the original piece of writing that is of 10 pages. So it is clear, concise, and summary of the contents of the original piece of writing, contents of the original text. Contents mean the main points discussed in the original piece of writing. A precise is the gist. It is the gist of a passage expressed in as few as possible. It is actually the gist of the passage. It is the collection of the central points of the passage that are expressed in as few words as possible. When you write precise of a particular text, you write it and you try to express all the major points discussed in the original piece of writing in as few words as possible. A precise should give all essential points. It should give all essential points so that anyone reading it will be able to understand the ideas expressed in the original passage. When you write precise of a particular original text or precise of any piece of writing, you should try your level best to include all the major points that have been discussed in the original piece of writing, so that anyone who reads your precise, he or she would be able to understand all the ideas, all the major points discussed in the original passage. So your precise should be representative of the original text. It should contain all the important points. Now there are some places where precise could be used. There are some precise. The very first one is to shorten or summarize. We can use precise in order to shorten or summarize different texts, such as we can use it to summarize newspaper articles. We can use it to summarize newspaper articles. We can also use it to summarize legal papers and legal laws for different people or for the general public. And apart from newspaper articles and legal papers and laws, we can also use precise in order to shorten rules or in order to summarize rules and regulations. Apart from these, speeches and conversations can also be summarized, or they can also be shortened through with the help of precise. Interviews can also be summarized, interviews can also be shortened. And precise can also be used to shorten or summarize different books and or magazine articles. Different books and magazine articles can also be summarized with the help of precise. Now there are some steps in writing precise. When you write a precise of a particular text, a precise of an original piece of writing, you need to follow some steps. And these steps are the following. The very first step is count the number of words in the original. When you write precise of any particular text, First of all, you need to count the words, the number of words in the original. There might be 1000 words in the original text, or there might be 200 words, 300 words, 500 words, 600 words. So first of all, you need to count the number of words in the original text. Your precis is 1/3 of the length of the original. It means that if there are 9 pages in your text, so your precis should be just 3 pages. It should be 1/3 of the original text. For example, there are 15 pages in your original piece of writing, so your precis should be 5 pages. 5 pages, it should not be more than 5 pages. It should be its precis should be 1/3 of the original, of the length of the original. And you need to understand first of all, you need to completely understand the original text. Read the original piece carefully and more than once. When you want to write precis, you need to understand the text first, and you need to write. When you try to understand the text, when you want to understand the text, you need to read it once, because you need to read it more than once, because when you read it once, you would not be able to understand the text. You would not be able to comprehend all the major ideas discussed in the text. Our teacher, Sir Zafrullah Khan, used to tell us that first reading is nothing. First reading is nothing, because it is nothing, because when after you have read the text, you would be able to remember only some points of the original text. That is why he used to tell us that first reading is nothing. Second reading is, he used to tell us that second reading is something more than nothing. It is just something more than nothing. And by reading leads to understanding. If you want to understand anything, if you want to understand any piece of writing, you need to understand it more than once. The more you read it, the more you would be able to understand it. The more you read it, the more you would be able to understand the major points in it. And after that, before you begin to summarize, you must first understand what is being said. In order to summarize a text, it is necessary for you to understand what is there in the original piece of writing. If you don't understand what is being said in the original piece of writing, how would you be able to summarize it? You cannot summarize a text until and unless you know what is there in the text, until and unless you know and understand what is being said in the text. So first of all, you need to understand all the text. You should annotate the article. As you are reading it, to understand the structure and how each paragraph contribute to the whole article. You need to annotate the article. You don't need to when you read a text, when you read the original piece of writing, read it as active reader. You should not read it as passive reader. You should critically think over each point. You should critically think over each word and sentence, and you should critically think over each point discussed in the paragraph. You should be active reader. You should be critical reader. You should annotate the article. You should not read the points as it is. You should think over them. And you should try to understand the structure of the text. You should try your level best to understand its structure, because structure is also important in different pieces of writing. And the very important point is, you should try to understand how each paragraph contributes to the whole article. We had discussed in the previous classes that each sentence contributes to the development of a single point, and all the sentences contribute to the development of a single point and central idea of a paragraph, and all paragraphs contribute to the development of a single theme, a single point, or the single point of the whole article, a single point of the whole essay. So each paragraph contributes to the development of a single point. Each paragraph adds to the development of a single point. You should try to understand how each paragraph contributes to the whole article. The second step is sentence condensing. The very first point is understand the central idea of each sentence. You should try your level best to understand the key idea of each sentence of the original piece of writing. And you need to cross out unneeded description. If unneeded description is there in the original piece of writing, you need to cross it out, and you should cross out all the unneeded description, all the unnecessary description and explanation, because Precis is one third of the original piece of writing. If you include unneeded description in your piece of writing, in your Precis, you would not be able to write it one third of the original piece of writing. So you should cross out unneeded description in Precis. And summarize each sentence of the article, each sentence of the original piece of writing. When you cross out the unneeded description, after that you need to summarize each sentence, and you need to remove the unnecessary details in the sentence, details from the sentence. Let's discuss it with the help of an example. Let's explain it. The example is, there is no icon in Canadian business more universally revered than Tim Hortons. Now we need to cross out unneeded description from this sentence, in this sentence, and after that we need to summarize it. Now this sentence would become, there are two possibilities. It could become, Tim Horton is a revered Canadian icon. We can write it in this way. Now we can see that this is sentence is very short as compared to this longer sentence, and we can write it even more shorter, like Tim Horton is an icon in Canada. Now the central point of this longer sentence has been discussed in few words, like even shorter. This sentence is even shorter than the above sentence, and the above sentence is shorter than the very above sentence, that is the original sentence. The third step is use a dictionary. Always carry dictionary with yourself when you read text, because there you would, when you read a text for the first time, you would come across different difficult words. You would not be able to know their meaning, you would not be able to guess their meanings as well. So it's better to have a dictionary when you read a text. Like look up any words that you don't understand. You should look up all the words, look up any word in dictionary that you don't understand. Pick out keywords. After that, pick out keywords, pick out the most important words. Think what their relation in thought is. After that, you should think over their relation in thought, and in this way find the central idea, and after that find the central idea. Now count contractions as well. In third step, you need to count contractions as well, and count contraction, these contractions as two words, not one word. The very fourth step is express your ideas concisely. You need to express your ideas concisely, because the basic purpose behind writing Precis is to write all the major points of original piece of writing in a concise manner. The very first point is omit appositives. Now what are appositives? You should know what appositives are. Positives means, let me clear it with the help of an example. When you say that Dr. Shujat Ali, after that you put comma and you say that the head of the Department of English. After that you put comma, and after comma you write is a good person. Shujat, Dr. Shujat Ali, the head of the Department of English, is a good person. Now in this case, the head of the Department of English is a positive. It is just opposite to the noun, and we write this is the short definition or the short explanation of the noun. This is what we call a positive, and you can search internet for the further details as well. And you should omit a positive. It will help you summarize your ideas. It will help you write the key points, write sentences concisely. You should omit positives. And the other point is omit words that are used for emphasis. When you read a different text, you would come across different words that are majorly used for emphasis, because there are words that can be used for the purpose of emphasis. We can use them to emphasize different important points in different important points in a paragraph, different important points and an essay, and different important points in different articles. So you need to omit words that are used for emphasis as well. You need not to include them in your precis. Chant similes and metaphors. Now, what is simile and what is metaphor? You should know them, and in your precis you should change these similes and metaphors as well. Omit rhetorical questions. Omit rhetorical questions by changing them to statements of fact. Now, rhetorical questions are the questions that don't require answer. That they are usually used by the different speakers, different writers, for the purpose of starting conversation or for the purpose of explanation of some other points. So, to summarize the four different points of writing precis, the very first we discussed four steps. The first one was step 1. So, in the first step, you need to count words in the original text. For example, your your original piece of writing contains 10 pages. You need to count words in the original text. After that, your text might contain 10,000 words, or your text might contain 100 words, 200 words, 300 words, 500, 800, or 1000 words. So you need to count the words. And after that, you need to read the original piece of writing. You need to read the whole text after counting the words. The third point is reread original. Now, what is the basic purpose behind reading the original text? I've just discussed it in the second slide of this presentation, that if you want to completely understand a text, you need to read it again and again. Until and unless you read a text again and again, you will not be able to completely understand it. Because when you read a text once, you can't comprehend it, you can't understand it. In order to understand it completely, you need to reread the text. You need to read the text again and again. By a reading will lead to understanding. And after that, annotate the original text. And after that, try your level best to understand all the sentences of the article. And when you understand all the sentences of all the sentences of an article, it will lead to understanding the paragraph meaning as well. When you understand all the sentences, it will help you understand all the meaning of different paragraphs. And after that, the second step was cross out description. You should cross out all the unneeded description, all the unnecessary description and illustrations. And after that, summarize sentences. After you have crossed out the unneeded description and unnecessary descriptions and explanation and illustration, you need to summarize different sentences. After summarizing sentences, you would be able to summarize paragraphs. Your paragraphs would be summarized after summarizing sentences. Check for overall idea of. After summarizing the paragraph, you need to check the overall idea of, first of all, each sentence. You need to check the overall idea of sentence, and after that you need to check overall idea of each paragraph. The third step is get a dictionary. You should have a dictionary while writing precis or while reading the original piece of writing for precis writing. And after that, check for various meanings. You should check the meaning of different difficult words in dictionary, and check for spellings as well, so that you may not make spelling mistakes as well. And cross all articles and cross all prepositions. After that, the fourth step is omit interjections from your precis. omit appositives, and we discussed what appositives are, and after that omit emphasis words. If there are words that are used for emphasis purposes in the original piece of writing, you need to omit them as well. You need not to include emphatic words are the words that are used for emphasis purposes in your phrases, and change metaphors and similes as well, and omit rhetorical questions. And the very last point is write your phrases. After having done with all the steps, all the important steps, you can start writing your phrases. Now, what to omit in a phrases? What should be omitted in a phrases? What should be omitted? What should not be included in the phrases? The very first one is all illustrations should not be included in the phrases. You should omit all the illustrations. And the second point is all the examples should also be excluded. All the examples should also be omitted. And all adjectives. Adjectives are words that are used uh, to modify or qualify noun. They are used to add something extra to the meaning of noun. So all adjectives should also be removed. And after that, all adverbs. Adverbs are the words that are used to modify verbs, adverbs, and adjectives. So adverbs should also be removed. These words, such as for example, for instance, that is, may, and might, etc., as well. All doubtful statements. Doubtful statements should not be there in your phrases. You should remove all of them. And then explanation should be avoided in the phrases as well. You should focus on the key points, not their explanation. Descriptions, unneeded description, unnecessary descriptions should be omitted. These were some of the main points and some of the main things that should be omitted in a précis. You should not include them in your précis. Now there are some general rules. The very first one is précis will be 1/3 of the original passage. It should be 1/3 of the original passage. I've discussed the point. For example, your original passage, original piece of writing contains 3 pages, so its précis should be just 1 page. It would be 1 page. The second point is first person I changes into third person, he, she, it, etc. For example, first person is I. It changes into he, she, it, etc. And past tense has to be used. You should use past tense in your précis unless universal truth. So all the sentences should be in past tense unless universal truth. On words, you should write the précis of any piece of writing in your own words. You should write précis in your own words. You should discuss all the major points of the essay, all the major points of the original piece of writing in your own words. Title of the précis should not be more than 3 to 4 words. This is also one of the rules, one of the general rules. Now, conditionals are use your own language. You should use your own language when you write précis of any piece of writing. It should be in your own language. It should be in your own word. It should be in your own structures. And after that, give maximum information within the required limit. For example, now the length of the original piece of writing would determine the required limit of your précis. For example, if your original piece of writing contains 10 pages or contains 9 pages, so 3 pages would be the required limit of your précis. 3 pages. It would be the required limit of your précis. Now you need to give more and more information within this required limit, that is 3 pages. You need to give more and more information. You need to give maximum information in these 3 pages, which is the required limit of your précis. first conditional changes into second conditional in Precis. And what about second conditionals? Second conditionals changes into third conditionals. Now, what are second conditionals and what are third conditionals? We will discuss them in the next slide. And direct narration changes into indirect narration. Now, what are direct narration and what are indirect narration? You should know them. So, to summarize, direct narration changes into indirect narration. Active voice into passive voice. Tariq broke the door. It is active voice, whereas its passive voice would be the door was broken by Tariq. So active voice changes into passive voice in Precis. Examples of conditionals are: if you call me, I will come. Probability, it shows probability, and this is first conditional. The second conditional is if you called me, I would come. This is second conditional. The third conditional is if you had called me, I would have come. This is third conditional. Now, as per rule, first conditional changes into second conditional and second conditional changes into third conditional in Precis. So these are different conditionals. And when you write Precis, first conditional should be changed into second conditional and second conditional will be changed into third conditional. Now there are some qualities of a good Precis. The very first one is completeness. Your Precis should be complete in all respects. It should cover all the important details, all the important points of the original piece of writing. It should be complete in all respects. A Precis should cover all the essential contents, essential points of the given passage. Given passage mean of the original piece of writing. It is the original piece of writing and should not omit any important fact or idea. Your Precis should not omit, your Precis should not delete any important fact or any important idea. Your passage should be complete in all respect. This quality should be there in your Precis. It should discuss all the essential points that have been discussed in the original piece of writing. The second one is clarity. Your Precis should be clear in all respects. It should discuss all the points in clear manner. A Precis should express the meaning of the original passage clearly. It should discuss, it should express all the essential points, all the key points of the original piece of writing clearly. It must be free from ambiguities and redundancy. Ambiguities should not be there, redundancies should not be there. It should be free of ambiguities. It should be free of lexical ambiguities and structural ambiguities. If ambiguities are there in your Precis, reader will not be able to understand and comprehend the important points. So ambiguities should be avoided. The very third and the last quality of a good paragraph, a good Precis, is conciseness. Your Precis should be concise and precise. It should discuss all the major important points of the original piece of writing in as few words as possible. A Precis must essentially be brief. It should be brief and concise. It should be coherent piece of writing, presenting argument logically. So your essay should present first of all the essential points of the original piece of writing, and there should be coherence between all the important points of the original piece of writing in your Precis. You should present all the major points of the original piece of writing in a logical order. Logical sequence should be there between the different important facts, important central points of the original piece of writing. So you should present all the important points in logical order. Now let's discuss some of the differences between summary and Precis. Some people confuse these two words. They think that summary and Precis are the same things, but there are some differences between them. The very first difference is there is a line between these different statements. This is summary and this is precis. Now, summary is in summary 300 words can be written in 330 words. There is no rule as per the length of words, length of the summary. So 300 words can be written in 30 words L. For example, your original piece of writing contains 300 words and you can write its summary in just 30 words as well. Whereas and precis, your precis should not be less than 100 words. For example, your original piece of writing contains 300 words. It contains 300 words. So your precis should not be less than 100 words, because in its rule we say that precis should be 1/3 of the original piece of writing. Summary is the condensed version of the text main points. It is the condensed. You should know what condensed is. So it is the condensed version of the text main points. And in precis, we say that title is must. In precis, title is must, and it should not be more than 3 to 4 words. The title of your precis should not be 3 to 4 words. Another point is written in your own words. You write summary in your own words. Same is the case with precis as well. You write precis in your own words. Okay, it should always be 1/3 of the passage given. We have discussed the same point so many times that precis should be 1/3 of the passage given. Conveys the author's main ideas. Summary conveys the author's main ideas. Similarly, precis also convey the author's main ideas. It must be rule oriented. Precis follows some rules. And the last point in summary is illuminates supporting details. Similarly, in precis, when we write precis, we also eliminate supporting details. We eliminate all the unnecessary description, unneeded explanation. So these were some of the differences between summary and precis. These are the references. Thank you very much for listening to the video. Allah Hafiz.